All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We're very excited to have really exciting conversation for you. Again, my name is Kevin. I'm with Students Against Destructive Decisions. Today, I have with me the supervising agent in charge, Mr. Brandon Shotwell, Officer Brandon Shotwell. If you want to maybe share with us who you are, what you do, and kind of what you do with your department.
Good morning, and thank you for having us. We appreciate it. So my name is Brandon Shotwell. I'm the supervising agent in charge with the Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control. Currently, I'm overseeing 4 units. We have our app unit, our grants unit, our trace unit, and our lead unit. Um, Part of that is OTS federally funded, and the other portion is in-house with the department. I've been with the department for 20 years. I've worked up and down the state. We are 150 sworn officers strong. We're all fully sworn peace officers. We have 24 district offices throughout the state. A primary function of our agent is to work primarily in an undercover capacity, undercover plainclothes capacity, in addition to a uniformed capacity, depending on what role we're doing at the time.
I know for SAD, we work with a lot of students to challenge them to stay away from the pressures of underage drinking. Uh, with underage drinking, how does that kind of relate to ABC for those that don't know what alcohol beverage control does?
So that's one of our primary functions. We have prevention programs that are in place to combat underage drinking. Some of the programs that we have are our minor decoy program,
Mhm.
our shoulder tap program. We also have our trace unit as well that deals with underage drinking, the results, the aftermath of underage drinking. Um, and in addition to that, we have funding to provide those programs to allied agencies throughout the state to help us with that cause as well. So with the minor decoy program, basically what we're doing is using volunteer minors who are between the ages 16 and 19 to go out and ensure that these ABC licensed premises are acting within compliance to make sure that they're not selling alcohol to minors. So what we'll
Uh-huh.
do, we have those minors go in an undercover capacity to to buy alcohol from these licensed businesses. Um, and that's our most effective tool at targeting licensed premises to avoid them furnishing alcohol to minors. That's the business aspect of it.
Mhm.
In addition to that, to get the message out to the general public, we have our shoulder tap program, which is essentially where we use a minor decoy as well, and we have them outside of a location, whether it's a gas station, a liquor store, convenience store, and then
Mhm.
anyone who's approaching that business as a customer, our minor decoy will contact them and state that they're under the age of 21 and that the person inside the premises won't sell them alcohol. And they ask this customer, will you buy the alcohol for me? And here's my money. I'm not old enough to buy it. And that's another measure that we take to counter underage drinking. And then with our TRACE program, TRACE is target responsibility for alcohol connected emergencies. Those are investigations that deal with anyone who's under the age of 21
Mhm.
with a crime that results in great bodily injury or death, um, and they're under the influence of alcohol. So that's the criteria that we're looking at. So we have a 24-hour hotline in place. So all allied agencies throughout the entire state can contact us. We
Mhm.
recently also launched an app, a Trace app. So when they're in the field, they can provide all the information to us as soon as possible. So we can start our investigation to determine where that alcohol came from. So the first thing when they contact, we confirm that it is a trace case. They are under the age of 21. They are under the influence of alcohol, and the outcome was great bodily injury or death. So we get those calls at 2, 3, 4 in the morning
Oh,
from these,
wow.
and we'll roll out there onto the scene if needed, and we will start our investigation. We'll start looking through the vehicle to see if there's any alcohol in there, if there's any receipts we start building our case, our investigation. We interview witnesses that are there. We interview, the victims. If they're at the hospital, we'll go out to the hospital as well and talk to them. And we try to build our case so that we can connect it back to the source of that alcohol, whether it's a liquor store, bar, restaurant, or if it's just another furnisher, just a person who didn't work at a business, we'll still take action against that person. If we do tie it back to a premises, then we look at taking criminal and administrative action against that business.
Wow, so it sounds like you go, if you ever have an incident of underage drinking, that you really go to the root of where that underage person might have procured that alcohol. And so it sounds like a pretty comprehensive investigation.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing with our department, our primary function is, licensing, education, prevention, and enforcement of all ABC licenses throughout the entire state. So our biggest thing, we don't just issue you an ABC license and expect you to operate without any education, any training tools, and expect you to be successful. So we also offer free training to every business that's out there, in addition to anyone that wants to take the training as well. We have our federally funded LEAD training program, which is licensee education on alcohol and drugs. It's a 4-hour class that you can either do in person or you can take the class online as well. At the conclusion of that, you receive a LEAD certificate to show that you're LEAD certified. There are certain cities and counties in the state that make that a requirement that they have to do. So, we really take every necessary step to investigate the person who's applying to get the license to make sure they qualify and they're going to be a responsible business owner. We provide them training to make sure that they know what to do, what they can't do. And then on top of that, we have prevention programs such as our impact training, where we go out and we have a checklist of things that these licensees should be doing. And we sit there and go down box for box of everything they should be doing as a responsible licensee. And we provide them with documentation of what they need to correct, what they need to address, before we have to come back out and take enforcement measures. So we really give them every opportunity to be successful and for us to provide them with free training so that they can continue to assist us in not furnishing alcohol to minors.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of facets to this when it comes to prevention, from the student side or the younger person side of not going to get the alcohol and learning that could result in a bad outcome, as well as for the business themselves of having that proper training of recognizing when it might be a youth, and what are the different processes to ensure that the youth doesn't get that alcohol. I kind of want to go back to that the shoulder tap and the minor decoy program. So with SAD, there's a lot of students who don't really understand the different ways that enforcement and prevention happens. And so with those two programs, you said that you use actual minors. You're not using like a police who looks like they're under 21 who's trying to purchase alcohol. So and I think that's a really great opportunity for a lot of students who want to get more involved and want to really be leaders when it comes to preventing underage drinking. How would someone who's interested in being involved, so for any of our students who are listening out there, how would they get involved with that sort of program?
So honestly, I mean, I'm glad you mentioned that because we really are always looking for minor decoys, and it is on a volunteer basis. This is something that as a civic duty is them volunteering their time that they can use, whether they're in high school or whether they're in college, as volunteer time. And in addition to that, we also provide like a letter of recommendation for their services, whether they need that to, as part of their collegiate requirements, or if they want to use that in trying to get a job, in law enforcement. That is something that we provide because if we didn't have these minors to do this for us, we wouldn't have this program. We wouldn't be able to deter underage drinking. So anyone who is interested, The main thing is that we're looking at people that are between the age of 16 to 19 for the minor decoys. And if anyone is interested in that, what they can do is go to our website, which is just www.abc.ca.gov, and then they can look up their local district office to contact. So as I mentioned, we have 24 district offices throughout the state. So they can go on the website, they can get the phone number, or they can send an email directly to that office and state, who they are, what their age is, and what they're interested in doing. And at that time, then someone from that district office will reach out to them for a meet and greet to make sure that they are qualified to be a minor decoy. We don't want anyone that looks to be 25 years old, they're really 17 or 18 years old, has a, full beard, so we want to look at them in person. We have Rule 141 that we have to follow. So we have to make sure that there's certain parameters that they meet. So their appearance, obviously, we got to make sure that they look like they're under the age of 21. We have to make sure, in addition to that, that they don't have a criminal record, because we don't want to use someone that has a record that will have to go and testify in court that could be used as a defense that would hurt our case.
We'll be sure to post the link in the description for those that are interested in getting involved. The police force and enforcement and prevention for underage drinking seems to be all the way from like the top all the way to the different local agencies. Every community probably has different conditions to which underage folks might get access to alcohol. How does ABC kind of support local agencies combating underage drinking?
Our department has an app unit, Alcohol Policing Partnership, that deals with providing up to $3 million of department funding for agencies throughout the entire state. So this year, we select 50 agencies throughout the state, and we gave them $3 million to go out. And they have goals and objectives that they have to meet. So they have minor decoy operations that they're doing, shoulder tap operations that they're doing, the impact training as well, some general enforcement to deal with other quality of life issues in the community. So that is our app unit that's funded through our department. In addition to that, we have federal funding that we receive through the Office of Traffic Safety that allows for many grant agencies for us to give them money as well. So that's 17 agencies this year statewide, and we gave them approximately $275,000 to go out and extend the programs that we do as well. And we keep track of those grants to make sure that they stay on course and they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. So at the grand scheme of everything, you're looking at 67 agencies throughout the entire state and $3.275 million collectively that we are funding to combat underage drinking. And that's just these allied agencies. That's not our department internally here. So we have 150 sworn that go out and do these things on a regular basis. That's just in addition to what we already do.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty great. I mean, it's really good to see so many resources dedicated to keeping young people safe. It's kind of to pivot a little bit. I know one challenging thing we have for SAD is underage drinking can be very like glorified in like media and television. Like I was watching a movie recently, Ma, and then the kids were drinking, and it seems like a very they make it seem cool. They make it seem that there's nothing wrong with it. And so with SAD, we have certain campaigns like Is It Worth the Risk, where we try to combat that idea that drinking is underage drinking can be really safe, whereas really it can be quite a risk. I'm wondering on your end, do you frame how underage drinking looks like?
So the biggest message that we want to put out there to the public, not just underage kids, but to the public as a whole, because collectively we all have to do our part, is the bottom line that underage drinking is illegal. It's dangerous. And we see the aftermath. We see the results. So it's important for us that anytime we do a case, or one of our partners does an underage case, or regardless of what it might be, we're sending that out on social media platforms. So it's going to Facebook, it's going to Twitter, it's going out there to all these different social media outlets, because the more people that view that, the more people that see it, they can understand that, wow, I had no idea that this is occurring. I had no idea of, what the aftermath is, with a criminal conviction, or what the fines or jail time can be. So it's dispelling all these misnomers that are out there. It is very tough, because with the media now, it's almost like they're desensitizing alcohol to kids. You see it in commercials, you see it in movies, you see it on TV shows. And it's tough watching these things. I'm a family man myself. I have 4 children. So it's tough to watch TV and have my kids sitting there and they show something on TV that, has them, that's eye-opening to them. Like, wow, oh, that's what they're doing. It must be acceptable at some level. So we really try, to make a conscious effort to put those messages out there to show people. We do press releases, we do the social media as well. It's training, prevention programs, and showing them that, this is what happens if, in fact, someone under the age of 21 gets access to alcohol, and it's not just for that time being, it's moving forward. It creates problems within the schools, social problems, legal problems, physical addiction. There's so many factors that go into what happens when you're under 21 and you start consuming alcohol.
I really like how you said how it's really not just the young person's responsibility, but it's the parents and the people who are selling the alcohol as well, kind of all play a part into this whole process. I know one of the ways that a lot of our youth get alcohol is there'll be a parent or maybe an older sibling who says, hey, you know what, it's better or it's safer if you do it at my house or if you do it under my supervision. What would you say to those parents or to those older folks who are using that sort of logic or giving young underage folks access through that method?
Well, I can tell you that they can be held criminally liable as well as civilly liable for their actions. That's why it's important for these kids to have those discussions with their parents, for the parents to open that door and say, okay, we need to talk about this, because there's things that you're seeing, there's people that you're interacting with. They need to have these discussions with these kids at a younger age to let them know what's out there and what dangers are associated with alcohol. And it's really the responsibility of the parent that has this child in their home to instill that message inside of them, not just, tell them, hey, don't do this, don't do that, and do something differently. These parents, some of them have a mentality that it's safer to have their kids drink at home instead of going out in the public and dealing with the aftermath. But I can tell you that, there's been multiple cases we've dealt with where parents have allowed their kids to drink alcohol in the home, or their kids have had their friends come over for a sleepover and they continue drinking throughout the night. And the next day, one of the kids passes out and dies from alcohol poisoning.
Oh my goodness.
It happens more times than you think. It's really upsetting for us to go and deal with that and talk to a parent afterwards and just say, what were you thinking? What did you think was going to happen? And the thing is that when they introduce the acceptance of underage drinking in their home, then you have kids that are starting to do that more frequently, and then that extends out to their classmates at school. So it's a slippery slope.
Yeah, I think definitely the normalization of it. And like you said, in media, you don't really see the risks that people experience of alcohol poisoning. I don't know if any parents hear about that happening in their, on the media, or the different risks students might be committing more risky behaviors when drinking just because you're impaired. and whatnot. So it's really great that I think you get to disseminate some of this information at, a lot of the really towards a lot of the really common things that people say and excuses that they use to give a young person alcohol, for a young person to like get alcohol.
Yeah, and I can tell you, so with our department, one of the biggest programs that we put on is called the statewide shoulder tap. And that's one day that we commit to going out, our entire department, all of our sworn staff, in addition to all of our app agencies and the mini grant agencies, we all go out in full force on one day for the statewide shoulder tap. And we do a shoulder tap during that day. And at the end, we send all the results back. And I can tell you that, for the last 3 years, I can just give you some numbers on the amount of people that furnished alcohol to minors as a result of this statewide shoulder tap. So in 2017, we arrested 366 people on one day for furnishing alcohol to minors.
Oh my goodness.
In 2018, on one day, we arrested 285 people for furnishing alcohol to minors. And in 2019, 325 people for furnishing alcohol to minors. And that's one day. So this is a very big event, very important event for us to do on an annual basis. There's a lot of planning that goes into it, but at the end of the day, it's more than worth it when you see the end results. We do press releases about this. It goes out on social media. So you can't dispute these numbers. When they go out there, everyone will see that. And we hope that, the local media, on the news stations, we hope that they broadcast it. We put it out there and the numbers are eye-popping.
Yeah, I mean, that many people within one day, I think it's pretty ridiculous actually. And so when you said for these days, this is I'm just curious, it's like a statewide event where you'll have different minors doing the shoulder tap, like all across California. Is that how that works?
Yes, the entire state. So our department goes out in addition to all the agencies that we fund. So the 50 app agencies and then the 17 mini grant agencies all go out and we go out, and we're all dedicated for a common cause on this one day.
Wow. Hopefully we'll see that number can go down, and as people get more aware of that, that this can lead to criminal charges, really. And then the worst, youth getting access to that alcohol and committing something that they don't want to commit, whether that's it's like you said, alcohol poisoning or
Right.
drinking and then driving. God forbid that those things happen and risk their lives.
Underage drinking, it has so many factors that are negative. It damages the development of your brain. It's illegal. A lot of people don't think about that aspect because they see it on TV and they think, oh, that won't happen to me, or what's the worst that can happen. And I can tell you, in working up and down the state, I've worked many different events. I've worked the Coachella event on a regular basis. I would work Chico State on a regular basis. So there's certain holidays when we're out in full force, and we have funding for that as well. So Halloween, we're out, in Chico. UC Santa Barbara is another big campus that has a large underage drinking problem. New Year's Eve, we're going up to Snow Globe up in Lake Tahoe. I mentioned Coachella. So we're out trying to, deal with the problems of underage drinking, and get the message out that, hey, you're going to be held accountable. You will be placed under arrest. It is a misdemeanor to even, just be in possession of alcohol. When we worked Chico State, if you were just in possession, not even consuming it, your license was suspended for a year, no questions asked.
Oh, wow.
But people don't think about that. There's a fine that's associated with it. There's probation time that's associated with it, and a loss of your driver's license. If you're between the age of 16 and 20 and you have no driver's license, you're not very mobile.
Yeah.
And the sad truth about it is that the number one killer of people between the ages of 16 and 20 is vehicle collisions that are killing these youth, and it's underage drinking. That's the thing. They're driving impaired, between the age of 16 and 20. They're just trying to learn how to drive, and it's the number one killer, these vehicle collisions.
It being the number one killer, what's sad is that it sounds like it's super preventable too. It sounds like it's something that can easily be combated through like the programs that you're doing with ABC and then with SAD and educating our youth to challenge each other to be better people. And so it's really great to see the efforts that we're all making.
Absolutely, and I can't commend, all of our partners enough. SAD, I've been working with them for several years with Rick Burt, and I just want to commend all of our partners. SAD, the prevention methods that you guys take, whether it's rock the belt or text less, live more, or is it worth the risk? We really are glad that we have this partnership because you're helping us in our cause. As well as some of the other organizations as well. Pat Riera over at MAD, and with RAD, Recording Artists Against Drunk Driving, we have Aaron Maluso. And now we also have Arrive Alive California that does the real DUI in court, which is a program where a real court setting is brought into a high school and a first-time DUI offender is getting sentenced right there in front of the school. So each one of our partners plays a role that's so integral in us fighting this underage drinking problem.
Yeah, I've definitely had the pleasure of seeing some of these programs in action. Definitely like the Real DUI. I was pretty impressed to see that take place at a school to an audience of like hundreds of students to get to see what a real court case is, and then seeing who the defendant was or the person who committed the crime. I was like, wow, this person looks like me. This person looks like someone that I can relate to, doing something that I've heard many of my friends do. So really, really awesome. And I'm glad that we have such a multifaceted approach here in California. I think it's all thanks to all the work that you're doing, we're doing, and the different other organizations that are combating drinking.
Yeah, no, we appreciate it. We appreciate the opportunity from you as well. And we have many different programs that we use. And one of the ones that, I mentioned when I go out to do the real DUI courts and schools is that, everyone, and this relates to a lot of the kids that are younger, is 21 Jump Street, a movie that, a lot of people have seen. And that is
right.
Something that, as I mentioned, our agents do work in an undercover capacity. And we do have agents on a regular basis that go out and work these high schools that pose as students. And it's targeted towards underage drinking, drug problems within their school. So it's one of those things where, with our department, just because we're not in uniform does not mean that we're not out there in full force taking some criminal action against potential furnishers of alcohol or drugs.
Yeah, I think that's all the more reason to be on your best behavior and making the right choice for yourself for those students. What if you kind of had if you had a microphone and you were able to speak into the earbuds of all the students out there? What's like a piece of advice or something that you'd want to impart on them?
I'd say one of the biggest things is to not give in to peer pressure. A lot of kids in that age group think that everyone else is doing it because they see other people doing it, or they see it on TV, or they see it on social media, and they think, well, for me to be cool or be accepted, I have to drink alcohol as well. I have to partake in that. And I can tell you that, that is not the case. What we want to instill is these youth being leaders and not followers. And when you see other people doing something that is wrong, whether it's a friend, a sibling, a parent, you do not have to follow in their footsteps. You need to be your own person. And if you, take the necessary steps and you prepare for that uncomfortableness of being faced with the peer pressure, the more likely you're going to be, successful with your life. And it's something that I tell these kids, I hate to break it to you, but the older you get, the more peer pressure you deal with. It doesn't stop in high school. It gets worse in college. It gets worse in the real world. Everyone deals with it, but it's how you prepare for it, and how you counteract that. Um, It'll measure how far you go in life and how much success you'll have.
Yeah, I think that's really great. A good message to combat peer pressure. And I think another thing it's important to know is that for the people that are doing illicit, drug use in high school, they are not part of the majority. That behavior might be glorified, but at least from what I've seen, that most people are not, doing those sort of things, and it's just I think media plays a really big part on glorifying and making it seem a lot bigger, or like a lot more people are doing it than should be. So that pressure should, hopefully those type of facts will encourage students not to participate and not to give in when they're confronted.
Yeah, and one of the big things is that we just want them to make good decisions. The biggest thing is that there's going to be many situations that you encounter while you're growing up, and as long as you make good decisions and realize that one bad mistake can actually end your life, especially when you're dealing with underage drinking. I don't know how many parents I've talked to, how many kids I've talked to that were in the hospital, saying, oh, well, I was supposed to be the designated driver, or, I didn't think that, drinking this one time would affect me like this. And it changes their life. They could be paralyzed, they could die, and there's nothing more heartbreaking than having to go to a parent's home and let them know that, hey, your child is no longer with us, and we're doing the best we can to figure out where this alcohol came from. But at that point, it's too late. We can't change what's already occurred. So the biggest thing we can do is put this message out there to avoid people making the same mistakes in the future.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, that you really can't take it back once it's happened, and hopefully making good decisions. That's what we're all about in SAD, and I think this will be a really great opportunity for people to just learn and to really think about the consequences, not only on the enforcement side, but also on just like of your life if something does happen. Like these laws and these programs are in place for a reason, and that's to keep everyone safe and make sure that they have the life that they can live, it seems.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, you can't have the mindset that, oh, that'll never happen to me, or, why is it just me? It happens to everyone. Even when I was growing up, when I was a youth, I had a stepfather that was an alcoholic. So, for me, seeing that on a daily basis and seeing it firsthand, that was actually my motivation to not drink alcohol, not get into drugs, because I wanted to be nothing like him. So that was my motivation. So, finding those good role models to follow after, and just realizing that, there's so much more to life, but you have to make the right decisions to put yourself in the right position to succeed.
Awesome. I think it's good to get to end on that. It's a really great closing message for our listeners out there. So thank you again, Brandon. It was really great to talk to you, and I think I learned a lot about the different programs, and I'm sure our listeners will learn a lot about the different ways that we're all combating underage drinking. And hopefully, if there are any youth out there that want to get involved, you know where to go, and you know who to reach out to. So I can't thank you enough again.
No problem at all. Once again, I just want to thank you guys. You, Rick, Lynn. Everyone plays a part in this. And as I mentioned before, collectively we have to put our best efforts forward to combat this problem.